This week on the podcast, I'm joined by menopause coach Nikki Saunders of Catalyst Coaching. And ladies, I could not be more excited to share our conversation that we're about to have today. We've already, before we hit record on this, I've just had an absolute mammoth of a conversation about all things menopause, being 40, nutrition, mindset, the corporate world. Nick, I'm going to introduce you and let you roll from here, because even if we just pick up from where we've just left off, I think whoever is listening today is going to get so much value, reassurance, and hopefully lots of takeaways from our conversation today. So welcome to the podcast, Nick.
Thank you so much. And let's hope we do get those takeaways. So we were just talking, weren't we, about how we met. So we met at an event a couple of weeks ago and talked about what we both do. And then we just ended up having a conversation about motivation for about half an hour out of nowhere. And I think that kind of led us here to this podcast. So for everybody's benefit, I'm a menopause coach. I'll give you a bit of backstory as to how I got into that. So my own journey of perimenopause started at 39, which is slightly early, but not unusual. And I did everything right. I went on HRT, I ate clean, I exercised, but something still wasn't right. I was okay, I'd say, for a couple of years, but then life got more pressured. So my career became more high-powered. My son got older and there was different demands there. Life just got harder. And the brain fog and stuff just wouldn't go. Equally, I'd worked in corporate for 20 years and I'd watched brilliant women like CEOs, founders that I often coached just suddenly lose their mojo. And I was telling you, that was really what inspired me to get into this, my own lived experience and working with brilliant women who all of a sudden were questioning themselves and doubting themselves. So now I help women not do that and find something that's a lot more calm, a lot more clear, and a lot more capable.
So I am fascinated by the work that you do, Nick. First of all, you've just said two things there, and I want to pick up on both. The reason that Nick and I gravitated towards each other at this event was because it was at that stage in the day, early evening, wasn't it, when everybody else around us was rotten drunk. And we weren't drinking. We were both drinking water, standing there, would you believe? Like, when I say this is not just a job, it's a passion, and it's something that we just seem to be. I feel as though I'm switched on 24/7 when I talk about this, but it's not to my detriment. It is just an internal part of who I am. And I always talk about on the podcast, Nick, it doesn't matter. I can be holidaying, I can be in the sauna, I can be standing in the queue, I can be at women's events, and I end up getting into conversations about health and well-being, and I just seem to gravitate towards these conversations. But Nick and I, anyway, we're talking about, gosh, no, we're definitely not going to have a drink because we want to be able to do all of the things this weekend, and we won't be motivated to do that if we're drunk and we can't do it anymore. And then I was just chatting with Nick about a little bit of her background. But then the other thing that you've said is when you started HRT at 39, and you said something there, Nick, you said, and for a couple of years I was okay. And I think that for me is, oh, okay. We want to be better than okay. We want to be thriving, but there's too many women, and myself included. I never want to sound as though I'm preaching on this podcast. I am very much on the journey myself, but I'm doing the discovery work and, passing on the info that I find through this podcast. But we want to be able to thrive through life and not just be okay. Like, it's a standard that I see so many women accept. But then the bar below that is, I'm at breaking point.
1000%. And, I think it's mainly because we kind of go, okay, it's menopause, or I'm 40, or I'm midlife, and therefore I'm going to be different. But actually, what we're telling ourselves in our head is, I'm losing my edge. I'm not quite the same. But actually, what we haven't connected to is what's going on in your brain is a biological transformation. And let's be honest, we're not prepared for that. So
No.
my mum didn't talk to me about it. And I hear this from lots of women I work with. Their mums didn't either. And when they do, they go, well, we just got on with it and we just pushed through. And absolutely, as women, do you know what? We push through, we just keep going. And like you say, we feel okay, but maybe don't feel like we're thriving. And that's because we juggle a lot more than you did 40 years ago. We work in careers that didn't exist back then. often senior positions, business owners, like we've got different jobs to what our mums and everybody else or aunties who have talked to us about the menopause. And, we're in senior, high profile. We've got to be really accountable and responsible positions. But also, we're in a world surrounded by social media. And let's be honest, in a world where you're constantly looking on your phone and you're comparing yourself to every other woman out there, the pressures are different. So
Yeah,
there's a lot more of them. So yeah, we do want to thrive. And for me, it's about understanding why your motivation has dropped. It's not that you're losing the plot. It's not that you're, some mad 40-year-old that suddenly can't make a decision. So understanding biologically what's going on, but then also recognizing that exercise and nutrition have 1000% got their place. And that's why you are bloody amazing. But also there's an element of just retraining your brain.
absolutely. Like the mindset shift and even the identity work. So I talk about this quite a lot on the podcast, Nick, is that we do almost go through a transformation of identity. And it is quite sad in a way. Sometimes, you think back to your 30-year-old self or early 30s. I can't do the things that she could do. And so I've got to be willing to either cling on by the skin of my teeth or choose to grow and evolve. But in that process, there's got to be shifts to how we take care of ourselves, but the mindset work and that whole, what you're going to talk to us about today, which Nick has sent over some notes, by the way, ladies who were listening. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the stuff that I know, but I've never seen it positioned like that. But that for me is the difference of, are you going to implement it or not? It needs to be positioned in a way that you understand why you're doing it. Because if we don't understand why we're doing something, then yeah, we are going to lose the motivation to want to implement it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that thing you said about, you want to be the same as you were in the 30s, you can't.
I know.
And there's a reason for that. And it's because when estrogen declines and progesterone fluctuates and you're in perimenopause and menopause, those hormones affect what has kept you regulated in your 30s. Your sleep, your mood, your temperature, but your brain chemistry. So when your estrogen and your progesterone are where they were in the 30s, the dopamine, your happy hormone, if you like, it's always on. When estrogen and progesterone fluctuate, that fluctuates as well. So that stuff that used to like push you through isn't there. But also we start experiencing insomnia. We might be hotter in bed of a night than we used to be. That makes us tired. And then that's why we get brain fog, because when you're fatigued, how can you remember the name of the postman? Or
Yeah.
whatever else it is? I joke. My postman is called Jesse. I've been calling him Alan for 4 years. And I know his name is Jesse. But of a morning when he knocks on the door, which he does most days, and I'm normally at home, I greet him with Alan. And then I go, your name's not Alan, is it? I go, and it's sometimes because we're tired and we can't deal. But when we see that happening, there are strategies you can put in place.
Yeah. From my knowledge as well, like if you think about it as in having a million tabs open in your brain, like we could facilitate that in our younger years. Again, this can be, and especially, you're from the corporate world, so I imagine it's not a hard pill to swallow, but it is the realization, isn't it, that like, okay, I need to compartmentalize here. Like a lot of the work I do with my clients, Nick, believe it or not, is we're establishing a good bedtime routine. We're putting stronger boundaries in at work. We're reducing screen time. And women will come to me and they'll be like, right, okay, tell me the latest low calorie diet. How many times a week do I need to train? And I'm like, okay, forget low calories. We're talking more about anti-inflammatory and the quality of your calories and reducing the alcohol. And it's a different approach because it's got to be, because we're in a different stage of life. And I think going back to something you said there about we didn't hear it from our mums, but a lot of my clients, and maybe yours will be the same, a lot of the reason why we want to get out to the other side of this is because we want to be the best version of ourselves for our kids. So it's like, in order to do that, as selfish as it feels, you've got to be open to making the changes.
Yeah.
If your motivation is really your kids, then it's genuinely get the bull by the horns. Stop comparing yourself to other women. Stop trying to shoehorn in the diet from the 90s or whatever. It's not going to work.
And this is where I think coaching is really different. And this is why I love what you do, because you're 100% right. The benefit of a coach over something like a PT or a therapist is that we help women put practical strategies in place that work in their stage of life. So what you talked about there about, going back to that diet from the 90s, that's just a one size fits all. But a coach is different. Like, we work based on the fact that everyone's experience is different. Some women, like you say, will be dealing with fatigue because they can't get a consistent bedtime routine, some with anxiety, some with sleep disruption. And a personalized strategy that you get from coaching helps you rebuild energy in a way that actually works for you. And you touched on something else there about, finding the motivation. Like, what is the thing that actually gets that person out of bed and motivates them, be it their kids, be it feeling stronger, whether it be, wanting to look their very best on a wedding day, whatever it might be. That, I think, is the real power that a coach unlocks, because we try and get that goal visualized, right? And when that goal is easier to visualize, actually the plans that come in after that become so much easier to implement. But you're right in that, first of all, like, you've got to start looking at patterns, like what is actually going on in that woman's day that's preventing them from thriving.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I see, and actually even in my own personal experience, only in the last 6 months, is it's just weight gain around your middle. It's like that stubborn area that you've never struggled with before. So I'll have a lot of women, I'll say classic case. So if you listen to this and you don't fit into this mold, then obviously this is not you, but classic case would be, want to lose some weight, you just go on a mega low calorie, you smash HIIT, you go to spin 4 mornings a week, and then you do like a HIIT cardio somewhere as well. But now all of a sudden nothing is shifting. And actually, if anything, it's starting to creep on more. But then we'll get into the weeds with this client and we are running on caffeine. I say we, not me. Running on caffeine, being like too good, in inverted commas, too low calorie for too many days of the week. And then, just having a wine and a takeaway and one thing and another at the weekend. It's this cycle, and there's just a point in life, and it does smack you in the face like a big wet fish. It's like, oh, this is not working for me now.
Yeah. And that's, like I say, I think what's so brilliant about coaching, because this is where you help women understand the patterns in their symptoms and their day, right? And you talked about symptom there might be the weight gain around the middle. That likely is because their energy is working against them. So when their energy is working against them because they're trying to do the 10 million
Yeah.
things that they did in their 30s, and your estrogen's declining, cortisol starts creeping in, and cortisol is the stress hormone, and you carry stress in your stomach. So, it could be looking at things like when their energy dips, when brain fog appears, when sleep disruption is worst, what the workload looks like, where the day is, when are they cramming that stupid HIIT class in they did 10 years ago, when they've actually got no time in the day for it. So actually their brain is firing at a million hours during the class. So they didn't enjoy it. They came home and felt bad. And like you said, they'll likely then reach for a glass of wine.
I think there's two camps of, like, what I say is the women who love to get up, love to go to the gym. That is our favourite hour of the day. But maybe then the rest of the day is no longer working in our favour. So that cortisol hormone that you talk about, we're flooding ourselves with that from the get-go because we're waking up. Cortisol's already elevated because of the stage of life. And if you're listening to this, ladies, and you're thinking, if I hear cortisol one more time, I know it is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, and it probably is being overused. And I see a lot online of, you can't always blame cortisol, but this is a very real hormonal shift that is happening. We're then putting ourselves under more stress in the workout, and then we're going into a stressful day. And we're not eating well, we're not recovering the way that we used to. And so calories come in and the body can't distribute the way it did previously. So it's like, store that as fat, because we're in fight or flight right now, so I can't handle this. So store that as fat, easiest place, round your middle. So that's that, exactly what you've just said. It's known as a stress belly, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And there's so much on social media about it, like you say. And I think we acknowledge it and we go, okay, that makes sense. But like you say, the solution for that is, no, I'm just going to go to the gym more. And I was working with a woman the other day, and she was one of those women. But then she was telling me she had no motivation to do anything else and that she was a lazy cow. And I was like, okay, talk me through your day. And she was gym at 6, she was going to the gym twice a day.
Oh, wow.
But she was running on 5 hours of sleep.
Mm.
And the rest of the day, she had about 10 massive priorities. So she'd gone to the gym. Yeah, she got a bit of an energy buzz, so she got that high for a bit. But then she went into work, was absolutely shattered, was juggling 10 priorities, which was massive mental overload. Then going the gym again, and then going, and then I've got no motivation the next day and I just feel awful. So she was almost like on fire and then slipping back.
Yeah.
And when you're that tired, of course, motivation isn't the problem, it's your energy. So all that stuff you've been talking about, are like working with your energy instead of against it, is so important because we will have less. It's just about distributing it in a way that's going to get you comfortable, that you're doing everything you want to do from a health perspective, you're doing everything you need to do from a nutrition perspective, but you actually feel like you're making progress instead of you just firefighting multiple priorities that actually is unsustainable.
Yeah, it's such a tough one, isn't it? Because it's the standard that we're holding ourselves to. And it's like, where have we come up with this crazy, impossible standard whereby, and a lot of it probably is social media, or I can't remember whether this was on your social media, Nick, or whether I saw it somewhere else. I think it might have been yours, and it was like a quote that was saying, we're trying to live like the modern woman, but then also be the 1950s mum and housewife and everything else. So we're trying to be present and in every nook and cranny 24/7. Like, we can't miss a beat with the kids, we can't miss a beat with, we want to do the home cooked meals, we want the house to be in order, we want to be a good wife, but then we also want to like dominate in our career and show up as our authentic selves. And it's like, how the hell am I then going to take care of myself in this mix? And it's very overwhelming. And I think, and I do see more of this now, is that we naturally just work longer hours, and we've got this capability, haven't we? Whether it's because of laptops or phones or working from home, where we can actually extend the working day to right up until bedtime. And I have some clients that do that. But then we get frustrated that we can't keep up with all of the things. And it's like, even me saying that out loud now, I'm like, that is wild that we're even trying to do that.
Yeah, and it comes from this place of like wanting to push through. So when you're in your mid-40s, or you're navigating midlife and your estrogen is declining, your natural response from your 30s has always been to just push harder. So you continue to do it. And the reality is you physically and mentally can't, because your brain is never going to power at the rate that it was. So
Yeah.
you've just got this narrative then in your head of, but I can't do it, but I can't do it, but I can't do it, but I can't do it. But I'm still going to push and I'm still going to push. And it's like this vicious cycle that is really hard to break. And I think, again, like, and I know we've talked about this a lot, and I know it's something you're a massive advocate of, but instead of telling women to like overhaul their life, so forget everything you ever knew and we're going to create this brand new woman, like starting small and building micro habits, because small goals are so much easier to achieve than a complete transformation of who you are. And I see so many women in midlife wanting to be a completely transformed person. And I understand why, because we're saying goodbye a little bit to that
Yeah.
30-year-old, which is really hard because we loved her. She was fun. She was out all the time. She could do, remember that image of the woman with like 10 arms, swinging everything and still
Yeah.
looking amazing with her makeup on. Um, so it's hard to say goodbye, but it's not about saying goodbye. It's about taking all that brilliant stuff and, like I said, just distributing it better and making things micro habits. So, the things that you can just fit into your day that are gonna make you feel like you're achieving something and make you feel like you're getting you back, but aren't gonna build more pressure, more cognitive load, make your day just harder than it already is, when it's already bloody hard.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Nick. So I was touching on this. I don't know whether it was inside of community or in a conversation, just about that point that we get to where we really need to check back in with ourselves, what it is that we're actually chasing after. Because there's this conflict of like, I will always talk about, we get to this stage where we do have to have a bit of self acceptance. We can't power at the rate that we did 10 years ago. be okay with that, be accepting of that. We also still want to look fantastic and feel body confident and feel as though we can wear what we want to wear and feel attractive to our partners. And like, you know, it's all well saying, right, okay, I've got to go into this cocoon now and embody my menopause journey. Well, we still want to feel smoking hot as well. But it has got to start with, well, I think it's got to start with this level of like deep self-compassion. And I know that so many women struggle with that. And I do on some level. There's that you're always fat. You always catch yourself, don't you? Maybe just even like the likes of the other week. I think I said this to you. And we go to the event and I went and got eyelashes done because I'm like, right, what's everyone going to be wearing? What's the theme? Am I going to, you know, look okay, this, that and the other? And I got there and I thought, why have you made this big deal in your mind? When really, Nick, everything you stand for is living and breathing your own authentic self and showing up in your own skin. But even me as an advocate of that, I still find that hard to do. So for the woman who is like in the transition of like this whole shift of identity and like your body is changing and you're struggling with brain fog and there's a lot going on and maybe you've got other responsibilities like you're looking after your parents or your kids are going through stuff, and to then be accepting of yourself, which is actually what we should be starting with. And this is like the micro habits is the hardest way and it's the least glamorous, Nick. I don't know if you think this, but like, you know, whenever a client goes to a coach, I think the expectation of, right, in 6 weeks, everything's going to be tickety-boo. And it's like, well, only if we're willing to do this really uncomfortable part of starting small, which wildly is more uncomfortable than overhauling.
Because we've always said that we can do everything. We've told ourselves for years we can do everything. So starting small is really uncomfortable.
Mm. I have a theory on this. So I've been asked this a few times. Do you think women can have it all? I'm always asked this by a man, actually. Do you think women can have it all? And I'm like, yeah, sure as hell. But we can't have it all at once. And we've got to be clear on what our definition of having it all is. Because having it all for me is not material things. It's not even, it's evolved. It's changed. Having it all to a woman in menopause might just be able to shut off your brain at night and have 8 hours sleep. That might be, oh, I am thriving right now because I'm able to get a good night's sleep. It's understanding what having it all means to you, I think, isn't it? But
Yeah.
that brings me on, Nick, because I'm keen to know then from your perspective, what are some of the symptoms that you see women struggling with most?
Brain fog, anxiety, overwhelm. That's what I see most. And, you know, tying into everything you've just said, the need to push harder. Because when that's happening, that's our natural fight or flight, right?
Mm,
The crumble, and we do crumble inside, but on the outside, we don't want anyone to see that
yeah.
at all. So we just push harder, and then it gets to a point where actually pushing harder isn't doable anymore. And that's where I try and help women. I don't want them to get to that stage.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, 9 times out of 10, it's insomnia is the biggest challenge. So the 3 a.m. wake up.
I was just gonna say about the wake ups in the night.
Yeah. And it comes out of nowhere. Comes out of nowhere. Somebody that's always slept through suddenly wakes up at 3 o'clock. And what I hear women say is, I don't know what's waking me up. But it is hormonal. It's the fact that your brain's been going all day. You've been juggling the 20, 25 things that you had on your list. You probably haven't done half of them. So they've carried into the next day because you put too much on your plate anyway. And your brain can't process it all. So, and as you said, like in midlife, we've sometimes got different responsibilities. Like kids might be leaving home. So you've got like that empty nest syndrome as well, a little bit, or your parents might need looking after. So all of that in your brain and coping with that is just really, really hard. And your brain starts to process it then during the night. So lots of the women I talk to tell me that all the time. I'm waking up, but can't tell me what they're waking up about. And I'm like, right, let's just try one thing. So just a brain download before bed. You know, something really simple. Write down the tasks you've got to do, the decisions you've got to make, worries. Oh my God. So I have a black box for my worries. So if I'm worrying about something, and I often say worry is a wasted emotion, because if you're worrying and there's no solution, you can actually do nothing with that,
Yeah.
right? Can't do anything with it. write the worry down, put it in the black box. And when you're ready to deal with it again, take it back out. But if it's just consuming you and you haven't got the answer, the worry is going to make it 9 times worse,
Yeah.
10 times. Like, it's just not going to help. Things you don't want to forget. But what that does is it kind of signals to the brain that everything is somewhere safe. So it doesn't need to wake you up at 3 a.m.
Mm. Do you know, I'm fascinated listening to this. I don't know if this is going to make it to YouTube, ladies, because we've had to switch platform for one technical reason and another, but I'm sat here almost like jaw open because I'm like nodding along. And you've just said something there about the worry box. And it makes me think of kids who have worry monsters. Now, mine don't. Will they have at some point? Maybe. But it's like this. It's like mothering yourself. It's like being able to care for yourself. It's not mothering yourself in a way that's childish, but it's giving yourself the same level of care that you would give the people that you love the most. And we overlook that. We're not willing to do that because I don't know where along the line we feel that we just need to have our shit together and we need to be more resilient. And anything that seems like we can lighten the load for ourselves, it's like accepting defeat. And I want anyone listening to this to go back and actually listen to that little strategy that Nick just gave, because that is brilliant. And it's so easy to do, but will people do it? No, because it seems too easy. Okay, I'm just going to put my worry in the box. And when I'm ready to think about it, I'm going to go back and take it out, but I'm not going to let it consume my entire day. Absolute mic drop. But how many women will do it? And it's like, yeah, it might seem a little bit childlike, but what's the alternative that we just carry on struggling?
Like not wanting to do it though, in your experience, like you work with women over 35 specifically, right? How much of that is because they haven't accepted that something needs to change?
Yeah, maybe. And I think something that I speak about, and it's like an ecosystem, isn't it? It all feeds in. Is that like if you've been worrying about something for long enough, so maybe it's just a worry in the back of your mind, maybe it's around one of the kids or your weight, or it could be anything, whether it's a big worry or a little worry. If we worry about it for long enough, it becomes a level of our subconscious self-talk, and it actually becomes comfortable for us, and we feel uneasy when we're not worrying. And ladies, if you're listening to this, it is a hard one to get your head around, because it seems like, well, how can I possibly be happy with worry? But it's just become a state of normalcy for you. And so to take that worry away, you feel exposed almost. Like it physically feels like something is missing. And even that level of discomfort. And this is why I believe so much in community. And yeah, maybe if you can, having a coach or some level of support, because we've got to be able to talk through these moments of like, oh, I'm going through something here. I'm in this white space in the middle and it feels uneasy, but it's going to, because we've never been in this territory before. I've never experienced, what it is with me, Nick? It's the tears. It's not the anxiety. Oh, the tears. My kids must think I've lost the plot. Honestly, an advert will come on. We talk about this all of the time inside of Thriving Women, because a lot of us have got kids of a similar age. And the Bluey episodes, I don't know if your little one's too old now for Bluey, but anything really, anything and everything can set me off. I can be having a full conversation about something completely off topic and then see a baby photograph. And I'm like, oh my God, get back in, the tears. I'm like trying to push them back into my eyes, because they just feel as though they're ready. They're ready to go at all times. And this is not that I've never not been an emotional person, but maybe you could shed some light on that, Nick. Because it's not a struggle, but it's definitely a change. Do you have a lot of women saying that?
Yeah, I do. And you said something really interesting there, that you try to push them back.
Mm.
And it ties into what we were talking about with like, we're not ourselves if we're not worrying. But why do we feel like we're not ourselves if we're crying? Like when we were kids, if something upset us, we cried. That was our natural reaction. So a lot of the work I do isn't to go, walk around all day crying. Absolutely not, because that would not feel nice for anybody. But actually, sometimes those tears are what your body needs.
Yeah.
And what you might need to do is going, oh, I got really emotional over that. What's happened in my day to day? What were my patterns? What was different about today that wasn't there yesterday, that may make me feel a little bit more imbalanced or a little bit more sensitive? And then once we know what that trigger is, that's the thing we can address.
Yeah.
It might be things like the sleep. It might be that somebody at work said something really annoying and we've overthought it all day, but our reaction has been to cry at a Bluey episode,
Yeah,
you know? So for me, actually, I say it's a good thing, but tell me what happened on that day. What was different?
that's interesting.
You
And
know,
what would you say, Nick, to any woman who's listening to this who, because I think of myself crying multiple times a day, and I just have to say to my husband, "Oh, just ignore me. I'm just," and he looks at me and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm completely fine." Like my tears have just got a life of their own. But to any women who are listening who maybe haven't got that support, which I feel like I've got on some level, and so we do try to suppress it because we don't want our partners to see us struggling, or they just make it worse, or maybe your partner's working away, or whatever it might be. Is there any like strategies or anything that you would give to those women who feel like they can't just lean into it?
it's a really tough one because most of us have a support network. What I see with women who can't lean into it is often they've become isolated because they've lost their confidence. So I hear a lot of women saying, I don't want to go out anymore. I don't want to go to like my friend's birthday party, or I don't want to go to this big thing. And that will happen because our confidence is dipping, right? And
Mm,
actually, we don't want to go out drinking until 4 a.m. I was a party girl. Like, I cannot tell you. I was the one that found a party and never went home. I cannot think of anything worse because I don't want to do that anymore, and that's okay.
yeah.
But I sometimes find this about women finding a comfortable social connection. Maybe they've stopped talking to a friend they used to talk to once a week on the phone, or maybe there's a friend they could go for a walk with for 10 minutes, but just building those social connections again is sometimes something that the woman who can't hold it in needs because they've not had anybody to share it with or offload it as a result of kind of drawing back and not wanting to do the things they used to. And it's about finding what would be the smallest thing that you could do that looks like what you used to.
Yeah.
You know, there's a woman I work with that, again, big party, just does not want to go out. And I'm like, well, what would a comfortable social situation look like? One friend, quiet coffee, 20 minutes. And she said it out loud and she was like, but that's not me. And I was like, but what might it be like when you've gone and done that? What might you talk about? What might you get off your chest? What might she say to you? And it's just reframing what that looks like often.
Yeah. It's interesting that, because then I'm thinking of when we met and we had that conversation. And it's funny because we swapped Instagram handles, didn't we? As you do in this modern age. And then we instantly messaged each other. And then straight off the bat, and this was not business or coaching related to anyone listening, it was just two women, very like minded, who, you know, when you feel like you found your people, but then also you've already got your people, but then you're going in different directions to some of them because life and we evolve, and it was just we're back and forth and we're, you know, sending each other voice notes. And it's like you underestimate how much that connection just brings on a sense of calm. And so even if it is that 10 minutes, we done like a community walk last week, 2 hours, get out. I would encourage anyone to do this. Even recommend it in your friendship group or come and join us or whatever. And I felt amazing after it because I spend a lot of time on my own, Nick, because working from home, I feel as though I'm speaking to people all day, but it's virtual. I suppose it's the same for everybody, unless you're in an environment like an office environment. You're on your own, and we underestimate the importance of actually just getting together with people. Like-minded women would be great. And just talking, we said, didn't we, before we press record on this, we want to talk about the stuff that matters, not just the generic black and white protocols, like the stuff that really matters, the stuff that we're thinking about, that we're worrying about, that we're going through. That's what we want to be talking about.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you've touched on that because, you know, we talked a little bit about well-being before. Social connections are so important for your well-being. And if you can combine that with something like a walk, even better.
Mm.
Because movement is so important when you're going through midlife, like moving your body. Like you said, we work from home, we're often sat down, we don't speak to anyone. That's the reason why my postie, who is Jesse but gets called Alan,
Oh, I was
is
just going to call him Alan.
gets his ears chewed off when he's at the door because same, I'm at home. But when I started to understand like the shift in midlife, I realized actually how important those social connections are and why I was maybe the way I was because I was lacking them. And, just having somebody that you could talk to about crying at the Bluey episode, it gets it off your chest, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And if you're doing it whilst you're doing something that makes you feel good, like moving and walking and you're out in the sunshine, all of those things will help as well. And, I'm not going to prescribe the same thing for everybody, but I think your example there is really powerful. Getting together with another group of women and walking and just talking is a social connection actually that can really help with that balance of those emotions that just seem to come out of nowhere.
And it is different to the Saturday night, and I would be lying if I didn't sometimes feel like, oh, I wish I could still go and have a few glasses of wine. And then, like, I used to go on a night out, this is many moons ago, and still get up and go to the gym at 8:30 the next morning. Like, I could genuinely burn the candle at both ends to that extreme. I wouldn't say I've ever been a massive drinker. Definitely had nights that I don't remember in my 20s and 30s, but it's just being better, isn't it? Just making the decisions that you know are going to serve you better long term. Like that event that we went to, I did have a glass of fizz and I really enjoyed it. I was like, well, that was it. My hubby was like, check you out, because he knows I can take it or leave it. And then I had a second glass, and then someone got me a third glass. This is over the course of many hours. And the third glass just sat there until I just gave it to the woman next to me, because I was like, I'm not going to drink that. I've hit my limits and I know what my own limits are. And I've got to, like, exactly what we've just said, go back full circle. I've got to mother myself sometimes, because my reason why is my kids and I want to be able to mother them. So this whole like full circle moment. But I would love to know a little bit more, Nick, about, because you were filling me in on this. Your coaching's a little, well, it's very different to what I do, I suppose, because you're more strategy based. So what is the work that you do with your women?
Yeah, so it varies. It's very much personalized on what's going on for the woman, but I guess I intersect in that exercise and nutrition piece. So it's not that I won't talk about the benefits of movement. It's not that I won't encourage people to move. It's not that I won't talk about the benefits of nutrition. But what I'm trying to really understand is the most destabilizing symptom of menopause for women. So starts off with initial discussion around what's going on, what feels most heaviest, when are those things happening, symptoms that somebody has got. And as I mentioned earlier, then just spotting and tracking patterns. Patterns are powerful. I wish I could get a t-shirt with that on. Once you start tracking what's going on through a day and patterns emerge, you understand why certain things happen. And for a woman, that's like, oh my God, okay. And then the other piece that I blend with that is the education. So do you understand why that brain fog's happening? Do you understand why that anxiety is happening? Because for lots of women, when you stick a menopause badge on, it just becomes another badge.
Yeah.
And whilst that works for some people, because let's be honest, you have a headache, you take a paracetamol, sometimes that badge means I'm fixed.
Yeah.
And you're not fixed, right? Because the symptoms won't go away. So it's about separating kind of the symptoms and things are happening from your identity. So you accept why they're happening and you understand why they're happening, and then it's a biological transition that means you can't potentially cognitively operate like you used to. But it's almost that moment of, okay, I get it
That
now.
makes sense.
I really get it. And then once we've tracked the patterns and we understand, and we touched on some of these before, like you mentioned the worry monster, like we come up with strategies that work for that woman. And 9 times out of 10, they know them, they've done them, but they're just not willing to try them because it's like, well, that's not going to work because I need HRT and I need this. And actually, you need to retrain your brain.
Yeah. I've got a couple of questions here then off the back of that. So, first of all, that piece about we know what to do, we just don't do it. I think at some point, bit of straight talk, we have all just got to acknowledge that, like, oh, I need to prioritize myself better here. Like, we've got to do it, ladies. We've got to, and sometimes it does mean putting in stronger boundaries, being more protective of our own time. Whether or not it has you feeling guilty because you've got to say no to someone else so that you can say yes to yourself, we've got to do it. Because that'll be a big pushback from a lot of women, I'm sure, Nick, as well, on your side, is that we don't have the time to do all of these things. But it's how we're prioritising the time that we've got. And are we willing to put ourselves at the top of that list? Because somewhere along the line, that's got to be a non-negotiable for the benefit of everyone. But the question, do you find that a lot of the women come to you have already been to the GP? I would consider myself self-diagnosed, early stages of perimenopause. I've not been to the doctor because, to the best of my knowledge, in the UK, GPs do not have to be qualified in menopause to qualify as a GP. So depending on what doctor you speak to, some are going to be clued up and great on it. Others will Google right in front of you because they don't know much about menopause and that wasn't part of their training. So I think that then leaves us a bit vulnerable, doesn't it, as women? Because it's like, is it worth going to the doctor? And also then we've got this other side of it of like, blood tests don't really show the full story because it depends what time of the month you get tested. Like, are you, luteal or follicular stage? Or there's so much that's kind of like grey area that I feel like that leaves us vulnerable as well, because it's like, well, if we're not going to get hard answers, then do we just keep winging it? Do you know what I mean by that question?
Yeah, I can see where you're going. And I think for me, this is where actually, as much as I'm a menopause coach, I always say to women, I'm not going to tell you whether or not you're in menopause. That isn't my job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my job is to alleviate the symptoms. And doctors, that's not their job always, right? So GPs, God love them. I've got so much respect for them, like under
Absolutely.
so much pressure. And they're targeted now on how many patients they deal with. So if a woman comes in and goes, I think I'm menopausal, this is what's going on, their natural reaction is going to be to give that immediate fix, which is the HRT,
Mm.
and not necessarily talk to the woman about, well, what's causing the anxiety? What happens on the days you're more anxious?
I think that's a loop that a lot of women will be stuck in at the moment, is that their predominant symptom is anxiety and then potentially then being given anxiety meds.
Yeah,
And it's
potentially.
actually perimenopause. And really, I'm not qualified to talk on that. That's just from, because obviously a lot of the work that you and I both do is it's lifestyle. So we're looking at, as you said, habits, patterns, behaviors, nutrition, all of these other things. You can see from the outside looking in. But then if you go into a doctor's office and you've got a 10-minute window and you say, I'm anxious, then that's the foregone conclusion. Okay, try these anxiety meds, come back and let me know how you're getting on. But from like a perspective of a woman who feels that she's in menopause, do you find that when women get to you, they've already been through that stage of going to the doctor and trying this, that, and the other?
Yeah, 1000%. I mean, I was sharing my story, wasn't I? So I actually had a fantastic doctor, I will say. So my GP referred me to a specialised gynae doctor who was fantastic. He told me that the blood tests were pointless, really, because depending on where you're on your cycle,
Of course.
absolutely asked me background history in terms of when my mum went through menopause, symptoms I was experiencing, and as much as that was already reassuring, put me on HRT. And I'll be honest, it did alleviate some of my symptoms. So the anxiety and things like that dipped a little bit. I was having panic attacks. They went, and I was having terrible night sweats. My husband wouldn't even sleep in the same bed as me. It was horrendous. They went pretty much straight away, but the anxiety never actually really went. And then the brain fog got worse. So yeah, I do see women coming with that and they're like, well, I can't be in menopause then because the HRT isn't working. And we were talking about this, weren't we, earlier, how your and I work has got such crossover because it's like jigsaw, I say. So you've got all of this stuff going on physiologically, and you've got all of this stuff going on mentally. And you do need to make sure that you are eating well and moving. And that doesn't mean, as we've talked about, being a size 8 in a bikini, but doing things that are good for your body, that are going to help build bone density and muscle mass. And we could talk about strength training in a little bit, and you can tell us a bit more about how important that is. I'm an advocate for HRT. I'm never going to say don't go on HRT. But that missing puzzle that women often miss is this brain piece.
Mm.
And like we talked about, that's the bit that I really want to make sure more women focus on. Some of it, as you've said, is identity. Some of it is just too much pressure that people are nervous about creating some boundaries around. And a lot of the work I do is actually around creating boundaries because we want to be everything to everyone.
I think it's quite scary as well when you start experiencing brain fog. And I know I've definitely had to have a word with myself because I know that I'm not doing the things that are going to keep me at my best. Maybe it's late night scrolling, allowing myself to stay up too late, powering on 5 hours sleep, getting up, going to the gym, smashing a workout. necking a coffee afterwards, all of those things. But then brain fog starts to be part of the conversation, and it is really bloody scary. And I don't know to what degree you experienced that. So my grandma had Alzheimer's when she died, and we did get to the stage with her where she didn't remember us. And even to say that out loud, that really scares me, Nick. So not only is it a very real symptom, but it's very scary. And I think the nutrition side and the lowering the stress and the removing screens before bed and all of these like little nuanced things that seem, well, that can't be what's causing the brain fog, surely. And then, yeah, maybe we go on HRT and that doesn't solve the problem because it's not the entire picture, is it? And it's some of it is, it's rewiring.
It's
How we
recalibrating.
think, yeah.
It is. And we tend to do that more openly when we're younger, don't we? If you think about it. So when we go through like kind of puberty and things like that, we kind of reassert ourselves as women, I think. We kind of find an identity that we're comfortable with. And then we do it again in our 30s when we become a mum. And it's not 30s for everyone, or we get a really high career. But yeah, in our 40s and 50s, we're not willing to go, this is who I am now, and this is me.
Do you think that's because we find it hard to accept that we've hit that point whereby we're not as young as we used to be? We're not ready to be grey hair grannies just yet, but then we're not what we were in our 30s. And it's like this weird middle ground territory, and we don't quite know how we feel about it.
I think there's a lot of that. We don't know how we feel about it. But I think the other thing is, and it's one of my pet hates, and it's not that I'm pulling other women down because I absolutely love anybody that talks about menopause. But a lot of the stuff that we see on social media is actually women in lycra lifting 40 kilo, saying that through menopause they thrived because they found this brilliant way of living. And for lots of us, that doesn't feel achievable.
It's not relatable. This is really scary though now for us because a lot of what we see, we already knew it was a highlight reel, but now we've got the use of weight loss drugs and AI and all of these other things to contend with. I'll touch on this, but I won't go down a rabbit hole with it. But I used to follow this woman, maybe she's about 10 years older than me, and like really inspirational, lifts weights, lives a healthy lifestyle. I just found, some of her content quite uplifting. And I just noticed one day she just seemed to have like changed radically. She was already in great shape. She was already someone I would aspire to 10 years from now. And she's fell victim to these weight loss drugs. And honestly, she looks tiny. And to women who are just coming onto her page now, who haven't followed the journey the way I have, won't know that old version of her. And so we're looking at how she is now and thinking, okay, that's the norm. And I'm like, that's not even her norm. She's spoken about it, but in a very sort of like, okay, I'll mention it so that I can't get pulled for not mentioning it, but I'm not going to make it part of my story. Do you know what I mean? We've got more women now representing in a way that it's not achievable because it's not even their reality.
I think it's that thing we were talking about before, though, right? About the need to have that badge and that fix. So I've got no motivation because I've put weight on. So yeah, I'm in menopause, I've put weight on. The fix is Manjaro. For me, it's about putting the work into actually accepting and identifying who you are, then putting strategies in place that actually figure out why the motivation has gone, how you can get that motivation back, which, like we said, might encompass a number of things, exercise, nutrition, everything, but something that actually is not a fix. It's a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
There's strategies that you can take away with you. I was working with a woman and she really, really like amazing powerhouse of a woman, high flying career, kids had flew the nest. And she cried throughout her entire first coaching session, just saying, I'm useless. Like they were the words she was actually using about herself. And she had gone down every route, including actually weight loss drugs. And I was like, well, did they make you feel better? No, because I didn't enjoy food anymore.
Yes. Which is such a part of our culture though, isn't it? And like, it's where we spend our social time.
And then once we started to understand actually why all those things hadn't worked, why she had days where she felt the way she did, when anxiety crept in, when she had that voice in her head, when she was overthinking, and we could work to put things in place for her across a number of elements the social connections, the retraining of the brain, the sleep, all of that. She came into her final coaching session and told me, this is me. And she wrote a piece of paper who she was and who her identity was and things she stood for and the things that she did every single day as habits.
Wow.
And she'd been on that journey. But I do think it stems from this: fix me, give me a badge and fix me. And a quick fix 9 times out of 10, isn't it, that we want?
Yeah. And it's fix me to what will be accepted by everyone else.
Exactly.
And it's, ladies, if you're still listening, because we've had a good old gab on here, and I think we're at least an hour in, but it's all relevant. And if you are constantly striving for acceptance, and I think, on some level we can't get away from it, but that in itself is another sign that it's the inner work that needs to be done before anything else. Because if we're constantly chasing what we think will be accepted by everybody else, then we're never going to reach the point of being satisfied and feeling enough, because that's always going to change. And also, I think there's something to be said for just being able to make those good decisions and good choices for yourself without having to be told what to do, what to eat, there's different stages that we go through in life where we benefit from that. I always say this to my clients, Nick. I want to empower you to make the better decisions. I don't want you to go on holiday and be going to pieces when you get to the buffet. Honestly, life is for living. But let's understand how to create a balance, not on the scales, up here, like in your mind, because we've all done that thing, haven't we, where you go on holiday. You go head first in the buffet, and then week 2, you've just got to wear all your baggy clothes because it's crept up on you. And now I think a lot of the women I speak to are like, do you know what? I'd like to find that happy medium whereby I'm not coming back and feeling like I've massively rebounded on holiday. Well, of course that's achievable. Of course it is. But we've got to understand how to make good decisions. And if you are constantly given a quick fix, the minute that you're put in an environment where you can't think for yourself, and this will be exactly the same with the work that you do, we go to pieces.
And this is why I absolutely love you. And I keep saying you're an absolute legend, because people do come to coaching wanting that, don't they? They think a coach is going to tell them, this is what you need to do, and give advice. And we could do that and make a living out of it, let's be honest, because lots of people do that. But it won't be something that you're happy with doing. So your point there about, you ask what's sustainable, what might work. That's where a coach's power comes really powerful for the client. Because if we just stood there and went, do this thing, take advice, here's a document on everything you need to do for the next 6 weeks, that document's going in the bin.
Yeah.
And then somebody is looking then for the next fix, and we're just constantly chasing. Whereas the power of coaching is it's personalized. Like, you have got those answers. You know what is achievable. You know what isn't. You know where your boundaries are and where they're not. You might not be implementing them, but you know what a good holiday looks like without you feeling absolutely broken because you've not committed to your healthy eating plan. Like, all those things, but a coach is what brings those out to you.
I think having the support as well. So anybody who's listening to this, who's nodding along to everything that Nick is saying, I will put Nick's Instagram handle and website and everything else in the show notes. But reach out and give it a message, because this is another common trait, isn't it, of us women, is that exactly what you've just said. I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. But sometimes you need the support. We do. We need the support, ladies. But we don't want to be accepting of that. And it feels indulgent almost to ask for support because we should know how to do it. But we are navigating at this stage of life unknown territory. Whether it only feels like, we're part way there, like I say to you, don't I? Like some weeks I feel as though, oh my gosh, this is perimenopause. Other weeks I am tickety-boo. Like, it makes no sense. It comes in waves. But I don't deny that I will absolutely want and need support at some stage, because we can't be expected to do it all on our own. And we shouldn't really have to. We need to normalise leaning on each other and lifting each other up. And like what you've just said about that client who come to you and was like, this is me. And I was like, as I'm listening to you saying that, I'm thinking I'm getting goosebumps. Because that's the win, isn't it, as a coach? That is the win, is that when another woman feels empowered to that level.
It is, and I love it. And I love seeing it. And I think we talk about empowerment, we talk about things like that. And you said something there about being indulgent. I think we've got a lot better at being indulgent with ourselves. 10 years ago, fitness coaches weren't a thing, were we? So we have started going on that journey. But I think it comes back to those boundaries of what are you willing to accept is not indulgent and is actually what you need versus what you're going to put in this category of, oh, I can't invest in myself that much because that's too much and I'm not that broken. And maybe that's the conversation we need to have with ourselves sometimes.
Yeah. And the self-trust of, if I take this step and it doesn't work, then, and we're not willing to take that chance on ourselves, we don't trust that we're going to stick to the program or show up the way that we know is going to be required. But I think this is what is different about the coaching that you do, is it's not about following a 6-week protocol. It's really not. It's like it sounds to me, Nick, like a discovery
Oh, yeah, it
journey
is.
almost.
Yeah, and it is. And what I always say is as well is sometimes we'll put strategies in place and they might not work, but we'll know why it hasn't worked and we'll know what worked well about it, what didn't, what could we do differently, and we can tailor it because that's where you get real learning, right? If you do something and it didn't actually work out, you might spot something else about you as a person that actually means that used to work for me, but it didn't anymore. But then you can articulate what would. Um, So it is a discovery journey. I always say it's a transition. It's about working out who you stand as now, working out what that looks like, and working out how you're going to make that who you are without just the things that we all do, which is, oh, ignore me, it's the brain fog. Or we almost
We brush
just
it off.
to one side,
We
don't we?
brush it off and then we get in bed and have a little secret cry.
Yeah.
Then wake up probably multiple times in the night, crack on with it the next day, go through the same cycle. So to wrap up, Nick, I've got a feeling that we're going to have a part 2. We might have lots of questions off the back of this. A bit of a spontaneous question, but to any women listening to this who are really struggling with self-confidence right now, and they don't really know what's going on, and maybe they don't have the support around them, what would be the first place that you would recommend that they start?
Aside from coming to work with me.
Yeah,
'Cause that
well, of course.
feels like,
Well,
the thing.
follow Nick's page, because honestly, some of what you talk about though, Nick, but this is the beauty, isn't it, of social media, is that you can actually take on board so much great stuff for free. But it's the implementation, isn't it? That's where the coaching comes in, being able to implement it all.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, aside from working with me, which sounds like I'm really pushing it and I'm 100% not, I'm joking there. There's 3 practical steps I'd probably start with. First is understand your patterns. So when is your confidence highest? When is it lowest during the day?
Love that.
What's going on in that day? Second, 9 times out of 10, confidence dips in menopause because you've not done the things you set out to do. Reprioritize, simplify your priorities.
Yeah.
Like,
Chop in half that to-do list.
yeah, chop it in half. Things like writing things down so the load isn't in the brain. It's somewhere, and sometimes that just is a confidence boosting thing. I've written it down. I know what my priorities are. Makes you feel good. Gives you a bit
Yeah.
of that endorphin rush. Small habits, just small habits. There's a 3-task structure that I've got, and I say do every single day. It doesn't mean you don't do anything else, but the 3 things that are non-negotiables. First one, the thing that you've got to do that day. Normally time critical, got to be done that day above everything else. It could be an email you've got to send. It could be you've got to send your passport off to go on holiday. That thing that you must do beyond everything else that's got to get done. Second one, something that feels like you're making progress towards something. So for some women, it might be, I need to apply for a new job. And they've been saying that for months. Do the first paragraph of your CV.
Mm-hmm.
Just one thing that moves you towards that goal. Because when we get rid of the things that we absolutely need to do and we do something that's moving us forward, guess what? That makes us feel good.
Yeah.
And the third thing, something that makes you feel grounded, be it that walk, be it strength training, be it eating a really wholesome plate of food, be it meditating for 10 minutes, be it going and getting your hair washed.
Yeah,
Something that where you're not thinking, you're grounded, and you're doing something that actually reconnects you with yourself.
I love
Um,
that.
make it simple is my honest advice.
Love that,
Um,
Nick. Remove the overwhelm.
yeah,
We've got
remove
lots of
the
that.
overwhelm, understand why your confidence is dipping, and then small goals.
Well, I think we're going to wrap that up. But Nick, I have loved this conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours. Ladies who are listening, you can check Nick out following all the links below. And if you've got any feedback, any questions, or any shares off the back of today's conversation, please let us know. Drop us a DM, send us an email, reply via the link in the podcast, wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. And we will look forward to catching up with you all on the next episode of the Nickel Rain podcast. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.